Welcome to Galactic Council Orientation Video number 7,000,003, Interaction Protocols for Class 12 Deathworld Species. This mandatory briefing is required for all diplomatic personnel scheduled for interaction with representatives from Sol 3, known to natives as Earth. The holographic presenter, a tall, slender being with iridescent skin and 4 arms, smiled with practiced precision as the introductory music faded. Behind him, a rotating image of Earth displayed various catastrophic weather events, predatory animals, and humans doing everyday activities like jogging and eating spicy food. I am Protocol Officer Zenith, and today I will explain the critical medical preparations required before any diplomatic engagement with humans. Zenith's voice took on a somber tone as the hologram switched to a medical diagram. As you know, humanity joined the Galactic Council only 3 standard cycles ago, making them our newest members. They are also our only Class 12 Deathworld species. For perspective, the next most extreme environment represented in Council space is the Vorax homeworld at Class 7. The hologram displayed a comparison chart where Earth's statistics towered over other planets like a skyscraper among cottages. Standard diplomatic protection includes the HC-275 pharmaceutical regimen, colloquially known as human tolerance pills. These medications prepare your body for exposure to human biochemistry, atmospherics, and behavioral patterns. Zenith's left lower arm pressed a button, and the display changed to show footage from what appeared to be a diplomatic disaster. A human diplomat enthusiastically slapped an alien on the back in what was clearly meant as a friendly gesture. The alien, a semi-gelatinous being, promptly collapsed into a quivering puddle. The Relaxian incident of last cycle serves as a stark reminder of what happens when proper protocols are ignored. Ambassador Gloop neglected his medication schedule and was exposed to direct human contact. His molecular cohesion failed upon impact, resulting in 3 weeks of reconstitution therapy. The video switched to another scene, a human woman casually biting into a bright red fruit, while nearby aliens watched in horror, several fainting outright. The capsaicin crisis occurred when humans brought appetizers to a cultural exchange. What they considered mild contained enough natural toxins to trigger emergency medical responses in 7 species. 2 ambassadors still report hallucinations during sleep cycles. Zenith's expression remained professionally neutral, but his eye stalks twitched slightly. Perhaps most infamous was the respiration misunderstanding. Human carbon dioxide exhalation levels are classified as toxic waste emission on 13 Council worlds. The resulting evacuation caused a 3-day delay in trade negotiations. The hologram switched to a pharmacy counter with neat rows of medication containers. Your medical officer will provide 3 distinct pharmaceutical preparations: atmospheric defense serum to protect against human respiratory emissions, chemical barrier gel to prevent contamination during accidental contact, and neurological stability enhancers to manage the psychological stress of proximity to evolutionary apex predators. Zenith's 4 hands clasped together in the universal gesture of sincere warning. Remember, humans evolved on a planet where 90% of the biosphere is trying to kill them at any given moment. Their idea of pleasant weather would be classified as a natural disaster on most Council worlds. They consume substances for pleasure that would be considered chemical weapons elsewhere. Most disturbing, they regularly expose themselves to lethal radiation from their star for cosmetic darkening of their skin. The screen displayed a human sunbather, labeled Extreme Danger, Voluntary Radiation Exposure. Follow your medication schedule, maintain safe distances as outlined in your species-specific guidelines, and remember, no matter how friendly they appear, humans are the most dangerous sentient beings in known space. They just don't know it. Ambassador Durran Caldwell of Earth straightened his tie for the 5th time, studying his reflection in the polished surface of the viewport. The massive space station that housed the Galactic Council headquarters rotated slowly against the backdrop of a purple nebula, making for a stunning view that still hadn't lost its wonder after 6 months as Earth's representative. "Ambassador," came a tentative voice from the doorway. "The preliminary meeting begins in 30 minutes. Durran turned to see his assistant, Miela, a young human woman who handled his scheduling. "Thanks. How's the crowd looking today?" Nervous, sir. Medical is backed up administering the human tolerance medications. The Florian delegation nearly backed out when they heard you'd be attending in person rather than by hologram. Durran sighed. I still don't understand why everyone's so jumpy. We're just humans, not some kind of galactic plague. Miela glanced down at her notes. According to the briefing materials, sir, Earth is classified as, and I quote, a biological hellscape where even the atmospheric composition would be considered industrial pollution on most worlds. That's ridiculous. Our air is... Durran paused, remembering the oxygen masks several species required in Earth-standard atmospheres. Well, I guess it's all relative. The Galactic Medical Office has invited you to observe the pre-meeting preparations. They thought it might help you understand why some species seem reserved around humans. Excellent idea. Let's go see what all the fuss is about. The medical bay occupied an entire deck of the diplomatic wing. As Durran entered, he noticed the room was divided into sections by species, each with its own environmental controls and medical staff. A harried-looking physician with 4 arms and blue-tinted skin spotted him and rushed over. Ambassador Caldwell. I'm Chief Medical Officer Thrix. Thank you for coming. I thought witnessing our preparations might provide valuable cultural context. Happy to be here, Durran replied, trying not to stare at the doctor's pulsating cranial sac. Though I must say, this seems excessive for a simple trade meeting. Thrix's 3 eyes blinked in sequence. Perhaps from your perspective. Allow me to give you a tour. They approached the first section where tall, willowy beings with translucent skin were receiving injections of a glowing blue liquid. The Etherians have respiratory systems that process gas at approximately 1/8 the pressure of Earth standard. Your exhaled carbon dioxide would cause their breathing membranes to crystallize within minutes of exposure. These injections reinforce their respiratory tissues. Durran winced. Should I wear some kind of filter mask? Oh no, that would be considered offensive. The medication is quite effective when taken properly. Thrix's cranial sac pulsed faster. Last cycle, Counselor Wisp skipped his 2nd dose and had to be nebulized back into gaseous form after a human sneezed in his vicinity. Moving to the next section, Durran observed bulbous creatures with multiple eye stalks swallowing pills the size of golf balls. The Morvellians evolved on a world with minimal geological activity. Their nervous systems cannot process sudden movements or loud noises without preparing their neural pathways. These stabilizers allow them to witness a human walking across the room without experiencing traumatic shock. We're not that sudden, Durran protested. As if on cue, Durran's assistant Miela dropped her datapad with a clatter. 3 Morvellians promptly fainted, their eye stalks retracting with audible pops. You were saying? Thrix remarked dryly, signaling for medical assistance. In the next section, small furry beings were being immersed in a viscous purple gel. The Zufflings have highly sensitive empathic receptors. Human emotional intensity, particularly what you call enthusiasm or excitement, can overwhelm their systems. This dampening gel creates a psychic barrier. Durran watched as one Zuffling emerged from the gel, shaking itself dry like a dog after a bath. Its fur instantly puffed out to 3 times its previous volume. Side effects include excessive fluffiness, Thrix noted, but it's preferable to empathic overload. During the first human Zuffling contact, your species representative said they were absolutely thrilled to meet them. 3 Zufflings experienced spontaneous molting. As they completed their tour, Durran noticed a small green being trying to discreetly exit the medical bay. Ambassador Plex, Thrix called out. You haven't received your human tolerance medication yet. The little green diplomat froze. I feel fine, Doctor. Surely one meeting without those horrible pills won't. The last time you skipped your regimen, you hallucinated that Ambassador Caldwell was attempting to digest you telepathically. He looked hungry. Ambassador Plex protested, eyeing Durran suspiciously. I had just eaten lunch, Durran mumbled apologetically. Thrix firmly guided Ambassador Plex back to the medical station. The pills, Ambassador, Unless you'd prefer to attend via hologram? Plex grudgingly accepted a rainbow-colored capsule and swallowed it with visible disgust. Almost immediately, his green skin developed purple polka dots. Is that supposed to happen? Durran whispered to Thrix. Common side effect. Better than the alternative. Now, Ambassador Caldwell, the meeting chamber has been prepared with specialized ventilation to minimize human microbial spread. Please try not to touch anyone, maintain a 3-meter distance when possible, and for the love of all cosmic harmony, do not sneeze. The grand reception hall of the Galactic Council gleamed with the combined architectural influences of 50 species. Floating light orbs hovered near the vaulted ceiling, casting a soft glow over the assembled dignitaries. At the center stood a magnificent table formed from the crystallized resin of the extinct Corsian singing trees, shaped in the Galactic Council's symbol of unity, a perfect circle. Ambassador Caldwell entered at precisely the scheduled time, flanked by 2 human aides. He immediately noticed how the crowd parted before him like water around a stone. A 3-meter radius of empty space followed him as he moved through the hall. Greetings, esteemed colleagues, Durran announced with his most diplomatic smile. Earth is honored to participate in these trade discussions. The gathered aliens responded with polite, if somewhat strained, welcomes. Many clutched their drinks a little tighter. A few discreetly checked medical monitoring devices attached to their various appendages. Ambassador Glorb of the Florian Confederation approached first, hovering slightly above the floor on a personal gravity disk. The medication-induced purple polka dots on his green skin pulsated slightly. Ambassador Caldwell, Glorb said, maintaining a careful distance. We are prepared for productive discussions regarding mineral rights in the Tau Ceti system. Excellent. I brought some visual aids. Durran reached into his briefcase. Several diplomats flinched simultaneously. A security officer's hand moved to his weapon. Durran slowly extracted a data tablet, making his movements deliberately gentle. Just some geological surveys, colleagues. The tension eased marginally. Counselor Zeth of the Morvellian Combine wobbled forward on his 8 tentacle-like appendages. Eye stalks extended, and what Durran had learned was an expression of cautious interest. We have reviewed your proposal regarding mining operations, Zeth said, voice modulator translating his natural bubbling speech into standard galactic. Most fascinating that humans can physically enter volcanic regions for resource extraction. Oh, that's nothing, said Miela cheerfully. My brother works in the Marianas deep-sea mining division. 30,000 feet underwater, crushing pressure, near boiling temperatures from the vents. Zeth's eye stalks retracted halfway in alarm. For recreation? No, for manganese nodules, Miela clarified, misunderstanding the source of confusion. Let's move on to the refreshments, Durran suggested quickly, noticing several diplomats looking distinctly unsettled. The catering area had been carefully arranged with separate sections for each species' dietary requirements. The human table was isolated in its own containment field with a warning hologram floating above it. Caution, Earth consumables. Approach at own risk. Durran selected a canapé and popped it into his mouth, unaware of the horrified stares. The food is excellent, he announced to no one in particular. You just consumed that without testing? Whispered a nearby Ithorian, whose own food was being chemically analyzed by a handheld device before each bite. It's just a cracker with cheese, Durran replied, confused. Made from fermented mammary secretions of another species, the Ithorian clarified, audibly queasy despite medication. And you ingested it whole, allowing it to enter your digestive acid bath intact. Before Durran could respond, a commotion erupted across the room. Ambassador Thrill of the Zuffling Cooperative was rapidly shedding fur in small purple puffs, creating a cloud around his increasingly panicked form. "A medical emergency," called the chief physician, rushing toward the Zuffling. "Empathic barrier failure." "What happened?" Durran asked a nearby aide. "Your associate," the aide explained, pointing to Miela, expressed enthusiasm about the appetizers. Her exact words were, "These are absolutely fantastic, with approximately 87% more emotional intensity than the Zuffling's medication can compensate for." Miela looked mortified. I just really like the space shrimp. As medical officers attended to the overwhelmed Zuffling, Durran tried to salvage the situation by engaging with the Morvellian delegation. He approached slowly, hands visible in the universal gesture of peaceful intent. Counselor Zeth, perhaps we could discuss the proposed timeline for... A loud rumbling sound interrupted him. It took Durran a moment to realize it came from his own stomach. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. Zeth's eye stalks fully retracted with a series of popping sounds. Two of his aides collapsed into quivering piles of tentacles. A third began spinning in rapid circles, a Morvellian panic response. What was that terrible predatory growl? Demanded a security officer, weapon now drawn. My stomach, Durran explained hastily. Just a bit hungry. It's a normal human bodily function. Your digestive system announces its emptiness as a threat display? Asked Ambassador Glorb, who had floated to maximum height in apparent preparation for aerial escape. No, it's just Durran began, but was interrupted by the approach of Dr. Thrix. Ambassador Plex is experiencing medication failure, Thrix reported tensely. His human tolerance pills were apparently from a defective batch. As if on cue, the small green diplomat emerged from behind a column, but now completely covered in wildly blinking eyes and apparent hallucination brought on by proximity to humans without proper medication. The Deathworlders are vibrating on a quantum level. Plex screamed, pointing dramatically at Durran. They want to consume our essence. Several security officers moved to contain the hallucinating diplomat, but Plex dodged with surprising agility, leaping onto the refreshment table. Their bodies contain enough acid to dissolve metal. They breathe oxidizing gas. They drink dihydrogen monoxide. Plex continued, now standing in the middle of a platter of what appeared to be ceremonial Florian fruit. The room erupted into chaos. Diplomats rushed for exits or took cover behind furniture. Security attempted to restore order while medical teams deployed emergency medication dispensers. In the midst of it all, Ambassador Durran Caldwell stood perfectly still, wondering how a simple trade negotiation had devolved into interstellar panic because his stomach had growled. This emergency session of the Galactic Security Council will come to order, announced High Chancellor Vorex, a massive gelatinous being contained within an ornate hovering life support unit. The chamber's acoustics carried his rumbling voice to every corner of the vast semicircular room. Durran sat alone at the human delegation table, acutely aware of the empty seats surrounding him. On the raised dais before him, 7 senior council members regarded him with expressions ranging from clinical curiosity to poorly concealed terror. We are convened to discuss the events of yesterday's diplomatic reception and to review Earth's classification status, the Chancellor continued. Ambassador Caldwell, you may make an opening statement. Durran stood, straightening his tie nervously. Esteemed council members, I wish to express Earth's sincere regrets regarding yesterday's misunderstandings. We had no intention of causing distress. Misunderstandings? Echoed Counselor Zeth, whose eye stalks were now encased in protective sheaths. Ambassador Plex is still in medical recovery, convinced his internal organs are being liquefied by human psychic emanations. That's not, we can't do that, Durran protested. 17 diplomats required emergency treatment, added Counselor Threx of the Florian Confederation, his polka dots now a sickly yellow. 4 Etherians crystallized due to proximity to human respiratory emissions. A Morvellian delegation member is still spinning. Chancellor Vorex raised a gelatinous appendage for silence. The issue before us is clear. When Earth was admitted to the Galactic Council, it was classified as a Class 12 Deathworld with appropriate protocols established. Yesterday's incidents suggest our precautions may be insufficient. A holographic display activated in the center of the chamber, showing Earth's vital statistics compared to other Council worlds. For the record, continued the Chancellor, Earth features extreme gravitational forces, aggressive weather patterns including frozen water falling from the sky, that's tectonic instability causing portions of the planet to spontaneously erupt or collapse, atmospheric oxygen levels considered combustible on most worlds, and indigenous life forms that have evolved specifically to kill one another in creative ways. Durran sighed. Chancellor, with respect, we call those things standard gravity, snow, earthquakes, normal air, and, well, nature, I suppose. Which brings us to humans themselves, the Chancellor continued as if Durran hadn't spoken. A species that recreationally exposes themselves to radiation, consumes neurotoxins for pleasure, deliberately raises their body temperature in enclosed chambers until they leak fluids, and maintains symbiotic relationships with predatory carnivores in their dwellings. You mean sunbathing, coffee, saunas, and pets? Durran translated. Look, these are normal parts of human culture that pose absolutely no threat to anyone else. Counselor Zeth's eye stalks quivered. Yesterday, your stomach produced sounds that triggered extinction-level threat responses in 3 species. Your assistant's emotional outburst about appetizers caused molecular destabilization in Ambassador Fluff. And let us not forget, added a crystalline being from the far end of the council table, that humans are the only known species that continues functioning after portions of their skeleton have been shattered and reset. That's called a broken bone, Durran explained. It's not pleasant, but it's hardly. You continue living with pieced together internal support structures. The crystalline being insisted, its facets flashing with agitation. My species would simply dissolve if our crystalline matrix were compromised to that degree. Chancellor Vorex's containment unit hummed as he considered the arguments. Ambassador Caldwell, perhaps you could explain why humans consider it normal to immerse themselves in large bodies of dihydrogen monoxide, for recreation, a substance that would dissolve the cellular structures of 11 council species. Swimming? It's fun. It's just water, Durran said, increasingly exasperated. A chemical so caustic it eventually erodes solid stone, noted Counselor Threx darkly. Durran ran a hand through his hair, not noticing how several council members tracked the falling dead skin cells with alarm. Look, I understand that what's normal for humans might seem extreme to others, but we've been model galactic citizens. Our trade proposals would benefit everyone, and we've respected all cultural boundaries. The Council acknowledges Earth's efforts, the Chancellor conceded. However, we must consider stronger containment protocols. Options before us include requiring humans to wear full environmental suits in Council space, limiting Earth representation to robotic proxies, or reclassifying Earth from Class 12 to Class 15 Deathworld status, which would restrict human movement to designated safe zones. The chamber fell silent as the gravity of these proposals sank in. Durran realized that humanity's place in galactic society hung in the balance because his stomach had growled at an inopportune moment. Chancellor, members of the Council, Durran began carefully. Before you vote on these measures, I ask you to consider something. Yes, Earth is different. Yes, humans might seem terrifying from certain perspectives. But diversity is the foundation of this council, or differences. An urgent alert tone interrupted his speech. The chamber's main display switched to a security feed showing a massive vessel approaching the station. Chancellor, reported a security officer. An unidentified ship has dropped out of hyperspace and is not responding to hails. Energy readings suggest weapons powering up. The council chamber erupted into controlled panic. Security officers rushed to escort council members to evacuation pods while information officers frantically attempted to establish communication with the mysterious vessel. Preliminary analysis suggests Kringer design, announced the chief security officer, a 4-armed Vexillion whose scales had darkened to an alarmed purple. Old configuration, likely pirates or marauders. Chancellor Vorex's containment unit hummed anxiously. The Krenger Collective was expelled from Council space decades ago for biological warfare violations. If they've returned. The massive viewscreen displayed the approaching vessel, a jagged, asymmetrical construct that appeared to be assembled from salvage parts of various ships. Its surface bristled with weapon emplacements. Chancellor called a communications officer. They're broadcasting. The screen flickered to show a hulking figure with chitinous armor plates and multiple compound eyes. Its mandibles clicked aggressively as it spoke. Galactic Council weaklings. I am Warlord Skriksak of the Krengar Reclamation Fleet. Your defenses are pathetic. Your station will be harvested for resources. Your representatives will be processed for biological components. Prepare for boarding. The transmission cut abruptly. Chancellor Vorex's gelatinous form rippled with distress. Our defensive systems are primarily designed to prevent diplomatic incidents, not repel military assault, the Chancellor explained. Military vessels are stationed in the outer system, at least 30 minutes away at maximum speed. Durran stepped forward. What about station security forces? The Vexillian security chief clicked his mandibles nervously. Most officers are currently disabled. They took their human tolerance medication this morning in preparation for the emergency council session. Side effects include drowsiness, decreased reaction time, and in some cases temporary paralysis of extremities. You're telling me, Durran said slowly, that because everyone was medicated to be near humans safely, your entire security force is essentially incapacitated? Essentially, yes, admitted the security chief. The medications necessarily suppress threat responses and combat reflexes. Otherwise, proximity to humans would trigger continual fight-or-flight reactions. A hollow boom echoed through the station as magnetic grapples from the Krenger vessel attached to the outer hull. Warning lights flashed as the station's computer announced, hull breach imminent in sectors 7, 12, and 15. All personnel evacuate affected areas. Counselor Zeth's eye stalks quivered uncontrollably. We are defenseless. The diplomatic wing is closest to Sector 7. Durran exchanged looks with Miela and his other aide, Thomas. A silent understanding passed between the humans. Not defenseless, Durran stated firmly. You have 3 humans who haven't taken any medications to suppress their natural Deathworld instincts. The council members stared at him in confusion and growing hope. Chancellor, Durran continued, we need access to your security armory, station schematics, and any information you have on Krenger physiology. You propose to fight the Krenger boarding parties? Chancellor Vorex asked, his containment unit's translation systems barely keeping up with his agitated bubbling. That's exactly what I'm proposing, Durran confirmed, while your people evacuate to safe zones. But there are only 3 of you, protested Councillor Threx. Sensors indicate at least 30 Krenger warriors boarding. Thomas, a former Earth military officer now serving as Durran's security attack, smiled grimly. Trust me, those are acceptable odds for humans defending their allies. The council needed little convincing to approve Durran's plan. Within minutes, the humans were equipped with station security weapons, lightweight plasma pistols, and shield generators designed for the multiple appendages of typical security officers. These are calibrated for minimum stopping force, explained the Vexillian security chief apologetically. Council regulations prohibit lethal weapons in diplomatic sectors. We'll make do, Durran assured him, familiarizing himself with the unfamiliar weapon. Now evacuate everyone who can't fight to the secure core. As council members and support staff hurried to safety, Durran accessed the station schematic on a central display. 3 breach points. Miela, take Sector 15 near the hydroponics bay. Thomas, Sector 12 by the recreation facilities. I'll handle Sector 7 near the diplomatic offices. The Krenger evolved on a low-gravity moon with thin atmosphere, the security chief offered. They've augmented themselves cybernetically to compensate in standard environments, but their natural physiology remains adapted to their homeworld. Meaning? Durran prompted. They tire quickly in sustained combat, their exoskeletons are adapted for low-pressure environments, and their visual processing is optimized for low light. Thomas grinned. So we exhaust them, hit them hard, and blind them if possible. Standard human tactics should work fine. As they prepared to deploy, Chancellor Vorex approached Durran, his hovering life support unit maintaining a respectful distance. Ambassador Caldwell, I must acknowledge the irony of our situation. The very traits that make humans concerning diplomatic partners your predatory adaptations, aggressive response patterns, and physical resilience may now be our salvation. We're not just predators, Chancellor, Durran replied. We're also protectors. That's something I hope the Council will remember after this is over. Security alarms blared as the first Krenger boarding parties breached the hull. Durran and his team moved to their assigned positions, communicating via station comms. The diplomatic wing was eerily empty as Durran approached Sector 7. Through a viewport, he could see the Krenger vessel's grappling mechanisms tearing into the station's outer hull. The breech door at the end of the corridor burst inward with a shower of sparks, and 3 hulking Krenger warriors stomped through, mandibles clicking in anticipation. Durran took a deep breath, remembering his basic combat training from diplomatic security courses. The Krenger spotted him and charged, clearly not expecting resistance. "Welcome to the Galactic Council," Durran called out, raising his plasma pistol. "I'm the human ambassador. Let me show you how we negotiate on Earth." 3 hours later, Ambassador Durran Caldwell sat in the Council's medical bay, wincing as a medical drone applied regenerative gel to a nasty gash on his forearm. Across the room, Mila was having a dislocated shoulder reset, while Thomas recounted the battle to a group of awestruck alien diplomats. "So there I was," Thomas was saying, gesturing expansively with his uninjured arm, 3 Krenger warriors between me and the environmental controls. I remembered what the security chief said about their exoskeletons being adapted for low pressure, so "You vented the atmosphere in that section," finished Counselor Zeth, eye stalks extended in fascination, increasing the pressure differential to levels that stressed their biological systems. "Exactly," Thomas confirmed. "Then I just had to pick them off while they were disorientated." Chancellor Vorex hovered nearby, his gelatinous form undulating with what Durran had learned to recognize as excitement. "Ambassador Caldwell, your team's actions were remarkable. The Krenger have retreated from Council space, and military vessels have arrived to ensure they don't return." "How many warriors did the 3 of you neutralize in total?" inquired Ambassador Glorb, whose medication had worn off enough that his normal green coloration had returned. 27 captured, 3 unfortunately didn't survive, Durran reported. Mila's trap in the hydroponics bay was particularly effective. Mila smiled modestly. "I just rerouted the irrigation systems to create an improvised slip hazard. On Earth, we call it Homo Malone tactics." The assembled diplomats murmured appreciatively, maintaining a slightly closer distance to the humans than they would have dared before the crisis. "The Council has convened an emergency session to reconsider Earth's status," Chancellor Vorex announced. "Ambassador Caldwell, when you are treated, your presence is requested." An hour later, Durran stood once again before the full Galactic Council. This time, however, the atmosphere was markedly different. Gone was the clinical apprehension, replaced with something that looked almost like respect. "Ambassador Caldwell," began the Chancellor, "today's events have prompted considerable reflection among Council members. What we previously viewed as concerning traits inherent to Deathworld species have demonstrated clear value in crisis situations." "I'm glad we could help," Durran replied simply. "The Council has unanimously voted to create a new classification," the Chancellor continued. "Earth will now be designated as a Class 12D planet, the D denoting Defender status. This classification acknowledges both the inherent challenges of interacting with your species and the unique protective capabilities you bring to our galactic community." Counselor Zeth's eye stalks extended to their full length in a gesture of formal respect. "We also propose establishing a specialized human security contingent for the Council station, composed of volunteers willing to undergo cultural adaptation training. Furthermore," added Ambassador Glorb, "our medical division is already reformulating the human tolerance medications to preserve necessary diplomatic protections while minimizing the suppression of cognitive functions and physical capabilities. In crisis situations, rapid medication reversal protocols will be implemented." Durran couldn't help but smile. The Earth delegation accepts these proposals with gratitude. We've always hoped to be seen as valuable contributors to galactic peace and stability. "There is one additional matter," the Chancellor said, a hint of amusement in his translated voice. "The Council's Cultural Exchange Committee has received an unprecedented number of requests from various species representatives wishing to learn more about human home alone, tactics, and other Deathworld survival strategies. We'd be happy to arrange some basic training seminars," Durran offered. "Nothing too intense, of course." "Excellent." The Chancellor's containment unit bobbed in approval. Now, I believe the human custom is to celebrate successful defense of one's community with a shared meal? Durran hesitated. Chancellor, are you suggesting a diplomatic dinner? After yesterday's incident? Indeed, the Chancellor confirmed, though perhaps with a slight modification to protocol. The medical team has prepared a new fast-acting tolerance booster that should allow limited shared dining experiences. We believe it is important to demonstrate our new understanding of human value to the community. 2 weeks later, the Galactic Council hosted its first ever interspecies appreciation banquet. Special medical stations were discreetly positioned around the perimeter of the grand reception hall, dispensing customized medications to non-human attendees. The buffet tables were clearly labeled with detailed composition information and hazard ratings for each dish. Durran circulated through the crowd, pleased to note that the automatic 3-meter clearance had reduced to a more reasonable 1-meter bubble of personal space. Ambassador Plex, fully recovered from his medication failure, approached with only slight trepidation. Ambassador Caldwell, Plex greeted, extending a small green appendage in the human custom of handshaking. I wish to personally thank you for your actions during the Krenger incursion. I've been informed that while I was indisposed, you specifically defended the medical bay where I was recovering. Durran shook the offered appendage gently. Just doing what humans do best, Ambassador. Protecting our friends. As the evening progressed, Chancellor Vorex called for attention and hovered to the center of the room. Esteemed colleagues, today marks a new chapter in Galactic Council history. We celebrate not only our successful defense against external threats, but also our growing understanding of the diverse strengths each species brings to our community. The Chancellor's containment unit hummed as it raised a specialized feeding tube in the equivalent of a toast. And to our human colleagues, may your Deathworld adaptations continue to surprise and occasionally terrify us, but always in the service of galactic peace. Glasses, feeding tubes, absorption membranes, and various other species-appropriate drinking apparatus were raised in agreement. As the celebration continued, Dr. Thrix approached Durran with a slightly concerned expression. Ambassador, I should inform you that our new medication formulation, while more balanced, still has some interesting side effects. Nothing serious, but you might notice some unusual behaviors as the evening progresses. What kind of side effects? Durran asked warily. His question was answered moments later when Ambassador Glorb floated by, now hovering upside down and trailing a stream of iridescent bubbles while singing what appeared to be an improvised opera about human defensive tactics. That's new, Durran observed. Dr. Thrix nodded. The updated formula maintains tolerance for human proximity while allowing greater cognitive and emotional function. Some species process this combination creatively. Across the room, a group of Morvellians had formed a conga line, their eye stalks bobbing in rhythm as they wound between tables. Several Etherians were engaged in what appeared to be an enthusiastic debate about which human was the most efficiently terrifying. Durran laughed and accepted a drink from a passing server drone. So we've gone from being terrifying Deathworlders to being terrifying Deathworlders that everyone wants at their party? An accurate assessment, Dr. Thrix confirmed with an amused flutter of his respiratory filaments. There's something particularly fascinating about controlled exposure to things we fear. Many species are discovering that humans are not simply dangerous, you're dangerously interesting. Chancellor Vorex glided over to join their conversation, his containment unit adorned with ceremonial markings for the occasion. Ambassador Caldwell, our data systems have been flooded with diplomatic contact requests from previously hesitant species. It seems your handling of the Krenger incursion has made humans quite popular. Popular? Durran raised an eyebrow. That's not a word I expected to hear about humans in galactic society. Indeed, the Chancellor continued. 3 mining consortiums have specifically requested human security consultants for their deep space operations. The Ethereal Communion, which previously declined all diplomatic overtures from Earth, has invited a human delegation to their home nebula. And the Galactic Academy of Sciences wishes to establish a research exchange program focused on what they're calling adaptive biological stress responses in apex species. Miela appeared at Durran's side, her arm in a discreet medical sling. They want to study why we're so jumpy, don't they? Essentially, yes, admitted the Chancellor. but with profound respect for the evolutionary advantages it provides. Across the reception hall, Thomas had attracted a circle of fascinated diplomats who watched intently as he demonstrated basic self-defense techniques adapted for various anatomies. A Vexillian security officer was carefully mimicking a blocking stance with his forearms, while several Morvellians took notes via their neural interfaces. "I never thought I'd see the day when aliens would voluntarily learn how to punch things," Durran mused. Ambassador Glorb, still floating upside down but now somewhat more composed, drifted toward them trailing a diminished wake of bubbles. Ambassador Caldwell: "I've had the most marvelous insight. The very reason we found humans so disturbing: your constant vigilance, your rapid threat assessment, your capacity for improvised violence. These are precisely the qualities that make you unparalleled as protectors." "That's what we've been trying to explain," Durran said with a patient smile. "Humans don't want to fight. We're just very, very good at it when necessary." "A distinction we failed to appreciate," acknowledged Chancellor Vorax. "We saw only the potential for harm, not the commitment to defense." Dr. Thrix made a polite interruption gesture. "If I might offer a medical perspective, our new research suggests that the human fight-or-flight response is remarkably nuanced. There appears to be a pronounced protective instinct that directs aggressive capabilities toward shielding others, not merely self-preservation. We call it the mama bear effect back on Earth," Mila explained. "Humans get exponentially more dangerous when protecting someone else." The concept rippled through the gathered dignitaries, translation devices working overtime to convey the nuances across dozens of linguistic frameworks. The ethereal ambassador, a being of translucent energies contained within a specialized field projector, pulsed with new patterns as it processed this information. "This explains much about human historical records," the ethereal noted, its voice a harmonious synthesized chorus. "Your species' most celebrated historical figures are often those who employed their aggressive capabilities in defense of vulnerable populations." "That's right," Durran confirmed. "Our greatest heroes aren't those who conquered the most territory or accumulated the most resources. They're the ones who stood between danger and the innocent." Chancellor Vorax's gelatinous form rippled thoughtfully within his unit. "Perhaps this is why humans rejected our initial classification. You didn't see yourselves reflected in our assessment because we focused entirely on your capacity for violence without recognizing its purpose." "Exactly," Durran said. "Being called dangerous isn't insulting if you're dangerous for the right reasons. But being treated as mindlessly aggressive was frustrating." The conversation paused as a commotion near the buffet drew everyone's attention. Counselor Zeth, apparently experiencing an unusual reaction to the new medication, had constructed an elaborate fortress from dining implements and was enthusiastically explaining tactical defensive positions to a bemused audience of diplomatic aides. "And this is what humans call a choke point," the counselor was saying, gesturing with multiple eye stalks. "Absolutely brilliant concept. Control the terrain, limit approach vectors, maximize defensive advantage." Dr. Thrix sighed. "I should perhaps adjust his dosage." As the doctor hurried away, Ambassador Plex approached with a delegation of junior diplomats. "Ambassador Caldwell, these are our newest diplomatic cadets. They've specifically requested assignment to Earth-related matters." The young diplomats, representing 7 different species, regarded Durran with what he now recognized as nervous excitement rather than fear. One brave Morvellian stepped forward. "Ambassador, is it true that human children are trained in competitive physical combat from an early age?" Durran chuckled. "We call it sports, and yes, many human children participate. It teaches teamwork, fair play, and physical coordination." "Fascinating," exclaimed a junior Vexillian. "And is it accurate that humans voluntarily expose themselves to recreational fear stimuli? Horror movies, roller coasters, haunted houses? Yes, we do enjoy a good scare in safe contexts," Durran confirmed. The questions continued, each revealing how radically the perception of humanity had shifted. No longer were humans merely tolerated dangerous curiosities, they were now studied with genuine interest and appreciation. As the evening drew to a close, Chancellor Vorax called for a final moment of attention. "Before we conclude this historic gathering, I wish to present Ambassador Caldwell with the newly created Defender's Medallion. An elegantly crafted symbol was presented, featuring a stylized representation of diverse galactic species standing united within a protective circle. This medallion represents our formal recognition of Earth's unique role in our community, the Chancellor explained. No longer merely a death world of concern, but a valued defender of galactic peace. Durran accepted the medallion with genuine emotion. On behalf of humanity, I thank you for this recognition. We have always hoped to find our place among the stars not through domination or fear, but through mutual respect and shared purpose. As the reception concluded and diplomats began to disperse, Miela sidled up to Durran. So, diplomatic mission accomplished? Beyond anything we could have hoped for, Durran admitted. Though I'm still not sure how I feel about being the galaxy's designated bodyguard. Look at it this way. Thomas joined them, demonstrating the new communicator he'd been issued as head of the station's human security detachment. Everyone's finally seeing what we've always known, that humanity's greatest strength isn't our ability to fight. It's our choice of what to fight for, Durran finished with a nod. As they walked back to the Earth delegation's quarters, they passed a viewport offering a spectacular view of the galaxy beyond. Ships of countless designs moved through the void, each carrying representatives of civilizations that had evolved in environments Durran could barely imagine. You know what the funny thing is? Miela mused. Back on Earth, we always worried that aliens would see us as primitive or backward. We never considered they might find us terrifying. And now? Durran asked. Now they see us as terrifying in the best possible way, she said with a smile. Turns out the galaxy needed a few Deathworlders all along. To the Deathworlders, Tomas raised an imaginary glass. May we always be exactly as scary as we need to be, and only when necessary. To finding our place among the stars, Durran added. Not despite our nature, but because of it. Outside the viewport, the vast tapestry of the galaxy continued its eternal dance, now with humanity recognized not as an anomaly to be feared, but as protectors to be valued, Deathworlders who had finally found their purpose among the stars.